Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, Joanna. How are you? Uh,
Hello.
so today we have for our webinar Joanna Płaskonka, who is a PST in Poland. My name is Patricia Kong. I'll be moderating for you today. Very interesting topic, how leaders can unlock a team's full potential with psychological safety, and kind of a series that you're almost doing, Joanna. So there has also been, this is really a follow-up. So Joanna has done a webinar about the importance of psychological safety in Scrum teams. We've done a podcast together that was around the cost of ignoring psychological safety. So that was an interesting one. So we had a good conversation there. You've also done an Ask a PST. So that's another webinar that's available on psychological safety. And this one is really interesting in terms of the aspect from leadership and leaders and talking about kind of that environment that needs to be created. So let's get started with that and we'll go to the quick guidelines. So again, everyone, welcome. Your microphones will be muted throughout. The session is being recorded, so Joanna has slides that will be made available. They're usually up pretty quickly after Lindsay, my colleague, gets them up, but they'll definitely be up within the day. And please ask questions. So I'll be moderating today. If you can see, there's a place for you to put in Q&A. So there's that Q&A button. Go in there. I'll see the questions. So don't put them in the chat because I won't see them. So put them in the Q&A and I'll make sure to get those over to Joanna. All right, next. So who is Scrum.org? Scrum.org is a mission-based company founded by Ken Schwaber, who is the co-creator of Scrum, and we help people and teams solve complex problems. We're primarily focused on doing that through training, education, certification. We have a global community, which includes you guys and also to PSTs like Joanna all around the world. So with that, if you could introduce yourself, and then I'm really looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for having me, and I'm very, very excited for our today's webinar. First things first. So you already know my name. My name is Joanna Płaskonka, and I'm a PST, but this is not the only hat that I wear. I'm also Agile Kata trainer. I'm certified action learning coach, and something that I'm going to use extensively today, I'm also a certified practitioner when it comes to team psychological safety. So before we officially started this conversation today, Trish asked me a very powerful question. Am I not bored with this topic? Because in fact, it's like my another presentation about this topic. I'm also doing those kind of conversations, webinars outside of Scrum.org too. And I have to say that I think that my mission just started. I'm at the very beginning of the journey. So there is a lot of myths, misunderstandings, and I think also fears related to actually uncovering the topic of psychological safety. And today we are going to tackle, I believe, one of the trickiest but also very, very important part of that. So what is the impact of the leaders and how they can help the team unlock the full potential? So let's start from the very beginning. If you already attended one of our previous webinars, most likely you know what is psychological safety. Let me emphasize that briefly a lot, what we are talking about and why it was proven in a scientific way that this is actually something that we should care about. So one of the most important people in the field of research and discovery related to psychological safety is Professor Amy Edmondson, who is still doing her research with her team. And when she was working with medical teams, hospitals, she was looking for what is this differentiator that some of the teams are more having more errors and some of them are less, because we can imagine errors in professional environments may have different impact. When it comes to medicine, well, error may cause harm. Worst case scenario, somebody dies, right? So she was really looking to find ways how to help medical teams become more effective and having less errors. So why some of the teams are better in that manner? And what she discovered was quite interesting. In the same hospital, in the same place, there are teams with significant differences when it comes to amount of errors. And she found out that the shared belief of the team related to whether it's safe or not to take interpersonal risks was this factor. And that is a definition by Professor Amy Edmondson of psychological safety. So it's about this air that the team is breathing in, and this air is influencing our decisions, or let's say lack of a decision. Some people say lack of a decision, it's a decision or choosing not to act, right? So why it is so important, why Professor Edmondson found out it is very, very crucial for our teams, because it is related to a quite uncomfortable situations when it comes to short-term consequences. So when we say interpersonal risk-taking, good example is I will be a fool in my colleague's eyes, or maybe even worse, in my leader or boss eyes, right? I will not reveal that I made a mistake, because everyone will be finger pointing, right? There will be bad consequences of that. I will not challenge somebody's idea like, oh no, I'm just a young doctor. How am I supposed to challenge a very experienced surgeon in the room that maybe he or she is not making the right decision during the surgery? So all those kind of thoughts that are happening in someone's head, this is the process of assessing whether to take this interpersonal risk and act, say something, speak up, challenge, or don't do that. And as a result, we are postponing this unpleasant consequence. But long term, it turned out, and this is what we've learned thanks to Professor Amy Edmondson, it is better for the company, for the team, for the customer, for the patient in particular, when it comes to medical teams, if we take those risks. So Professor Amy Edmondson concluded, if we want high-performing teams, we need a safe space for this interpersonal risk-taking. What is also important to emphasize, we are not relying here only on one person. Well, Professor Edmondson worked with teams across different companies and industries to gather data and evidence. It was also confirmed by the company called Google, which I hope I don't need to introduce to you, our dear audience. So Google was also some years ago looking for reasons why some of the teams are fantastic, awesome, amazing, high performing, and why some of them are just good, not so great, right? So they found out exactly the same explanation when we compare it to what Professor Edmondson wrote years earlier. Psychological safety is a top predictor of team success when it comes to effectiveness and performance. How cool is that? So there is something that is crucial for us as leaders. If we have any leaders in our virtual room, please ask yourself a question. Do I care about performance? If we have team members, ask yourself, does my leader care about performance? I think that the answer is yes, they do. And I have never met any company telling me that, no, we don't care about great results. No, it's not important for us. Performance does not matter at all, right? Of course it does, right? So there is a great news for us as leaders. So here we can see a certain model idea created again by Professor Amy Edmondson. High psychological safety with high standards. This is the path to achieving learning and high performance zone. So this is something that, again, we cannot just simply ignore if performance matters to us. So let's imagine that we have achieved this high level of psychological safety. People know they can speak up, they can share different perspectives, they can admit that they made an error, and they are willing to learn from that. What becomes possible in such environment? Transparency and early risk detection. So as I believe we already remember, transparency is one of Scrum pillars. Without transparency, how on earth we are supposed to effectively inspect and adapt? Using vocabulary more common in Professor Edmondson books, we will not effectively learn. And if we have this safe space and people know, okay, something bad happened, but it's better to make it transparent, to speak about it, to focus on solving the problem instead of pretending it does not exist and putting everything into the closet and pretending everything is fine. So this is what we are aiming at. And let's be honest, problems, risks, errors happen everywhere. It's better to know and act instead of learn very, very late in the process. Imagine from user's perspective. If we are able to spot problems earlier, we are also able to quicker solve the problems, maybe before bugs will be seen on production. So it's also about our users, and it's about our position. Faster learning and innovation. So we talk more and more about the importance of learning. We even have a course about product discovery and validation. It happens to me that people learned about the concepts. They absolutely love the ideas. They want to move along this truth curve, but they say, how do I make it happen, right? Why my teams don't know that they can do that? It might be a matter of building space. What kind of space? Psychologically safe space for showing that it is okay to learn, and we expect this process to be bumpy, a little chaotic, because we will learn that maybe this path is not right, but maybe we should explore something else. This might be a great opportunity to connect those two things. Yes, learn about product discovery and validation, maybe you should also build it together with psychologically safe environment for your teams. Better communication and collaboration. That's a really good one. And we also had a good discussion that, well, maybe in some of the cultures, we tend to avoid saying truth. Maybe in others, we might be too harsh. I think I can relate to that with my culture, with my experience. Psychological safety, it's about balance. Okay, so if we learn to avoid silence and at the same time avoid acting like, like a tank, with your truth, right? And we will find a way how to communicate effectively. It can influence collaboration and overall results in a better way, because people might be willing to talk earlier. They know they will not be judged, but this conversation can lead to, I would call it, learning conversation about different perspectives and what we can do better as a team, instead of judgment, or instead of avoiding telling that, well, I don't like this idea so much. Great. How to do it in a way that we don't offend anyone on one hand, but on the other, don't avoid the topic. That's the art. And the safety environment can help us with that. Increased accountability. So I think I will make a lot of connections to Scrum Guide, but I'm a PST. So we say in Scrum Guide that developers, for instance, they hold each other accountable for being a professional. They are accountable for quality, right? And a lot of people say, that sounds awesome, but in real life. And I say, in real life, Scrum Guide is clear. You have to fill your Scrum with some practices, tools, and there are also some requirements for Scrum to function effectively. So to build this accountability, one of your steps might be related to to building psychological safety, so that people know it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to become a leader, as speaking about leadership, right? Leader for this problem, for solving this problem. This is one of the aspects that I see a clear connection here. So yes, you are right. Accountability in many cases is not just given from the sky. How to make it happen? By working on different things. In particular, psychological safety might be your friend. So another one, stronger trust and team cohesion. So psychological safety and trust, they are not exactly the same things, but there are connections here. In particular, if you want to better understand the difference, if we go back to definition by Professor Amy Edmondson, it is a shared belief on the team level, right? And I can trust, for instance, Patricia, that she will do an amazing job as a host. So it might be a personal relationship. I can trust my boss. I can generally trust my team. So this relationship might be of, let's say, different type. And in psychological safety, we say this team's environment. Taking those beautiful differences aside, building psychological safety, yes, it will affect people trust, because they will trust each other, that nobody will be judged in a harsh way. We will be focused on solving problems, and this generally may affect different kind of trust that we can spot in the teams. Better strategic alignment. I think this is a very typical problem, especially in bigger companies, that we work so hard, we have some common goals, but seems like maybe we are lost. We are working on some things, And you know what? In my experience, it's very common that people care a lot. They do care about their work. They want to make the best possible things. However, if don't feel safe to ask right questions, if they don't feel safe to challenge certain decisions and they just do the work, right, we may end up with lack of alignment here. And that's the straightforward path to a waste. So we are losing opportunity to work on right things. And last but not least, so we already mentioned that it's a story about performance. But here I also want to emphasize that this is a sustainable high performance. And we all know that Scrum, but I think generally product or company, it's not just typically like one-time game, it's a longer game. And having a sustainable performance, high performance, is an important part of that game.
Joanna, we have a good question, an interesting question. Will the individual positions in the company impact the level of trust and how it is gained or lost? So depending on a person's place in the hierarchy of the organization.
Oh, that's a lovely question. Yes, of course. And actually, we will soon talk a little bit more about that. But leaders have a very specific impact. And I dare to say that leaders on different levels will have a different impact. Even starting from highest executives, our directors and so on, through middle management and even through informal leadership, all those leaders will shape trust, will shape psychological safety. How? I'm happy to say just in a few minutes.
It's very interesting to, in general, of what you're saying, to be aware of that, because there definitely have been studies, like I've done some work around the notion of innovation and curiosity, and just the fact that sometimes the higher you are in an organization, because you're allowed to say your new ideas and all these things that we should be doing, tend to be the higher you are in the organization, you think that there's a more safe environment than is really true in the rest of the organization. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we move forward?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So if you are able to remember just one sentence from that part, I want you to take this one. Psychological safety is a performance driver. But if we take a look at the car metaphor, it's not fuel, it's not our steering wheel. It's actually this little thing. How do we call it? It's like handbrake, parking brake. Yeah.
I drive automatic. I have no clue what that is.
Okay. So when you drive automatic, I believe you might have a button. But if you have a traditional gear,
The gear, right?
yeah. So you may just decide to pull it up, right? This movement. This is what I was taught when I was learning how to drive.
Someone said the parking brake. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So parking brake. So this is psychological safety. It's not a guarantee of the wonderful success, but if it's on, and on means low psychological safety, it might be difficult to drive effectively. Let's be honest. So this is how psychological safety works. It's an enabler for other things to work effectively. Okay, moving on, and as I promised, let's talk about leaders. This is why we gathered here today, right? To talk about leaders. So in organizations, we will have, let's say, like briefly, two types of leaders: formals and informal ones. Who are the formal leaders? Somebody who has a position, like as we started in the hierarchy, somebody who got a special title, and it is made clear like this is a manager responsible for this area, for this team, for this outcome, etc. So we will have, especially in bigger organizations, different types of formal leaders. Do they have an impact? Of course, enormous impact on psychological safety. And why? Surprise, surprise, because they control key systems. And my colleague used to use this metaphor that it's like a hidden tool that you can pretend that you don't have it, but you do. But you do, because of your position, because of these superpowers that you have. Many leaders, they are responsible for firing people and hiring people, right? Based on their feedback, we may get some rewards. And I'm not speaking only about, financial rewards, but recognition, being seen. So this is one of the reasons why leaders have enormous impact on psychological safety. Why is it so? Because they will hold power over consequences. So one of the aspects related to psychological safety is how we react when it comes to making mistakes. And yes, not all mistakes are equal. Some of them are just, we are not focused on quality. Then yes, that's a clear no. And I think everyone can agree that if we are not paying attention to what truly matters, and it's just lack of our commitment to doing things in the right way, not great, right? There will be consequences. But here, it's a very important aspect that if my own story, if the team is in the really, really deep discovery, and there's a lot of experiments, and almost all of the experiments are giving answer, no, not this path, it does not work, then how the leaders react can change everything. What happened initially in my story is that leaders felt, Houston, we have to react here, something is bad happening, because they saw no outcomes. In the sense, there are no differences when it comes to our product metrics. So what we did is we worked with leaders to make them realize we are in the discovery. It's a lot about learning, and it might be that there will be a lot of no's in that process. So what helped in the end, when we changed sprint review format to what have we learned in this sprint? So the team presented the most important experiments and what were their learnings. It helped a lot, and the leaders understood better why there are no changes in the metrics. So they also role model vulnerability. And another good story, I was teaching PAL course, so our course for the leaders, and one of the participants asked a question, but if I made a mistake, or I said, if I say something stupid, what should I do? And my question was, what's wrong with stating what it is? And if you feel it is right, just saying, I'm sorry for my mistake. It happens. I apologize. This is not what I meant. And thinking about it now, it feels like simple, right? Okay, you made a mistake. Maybe you can just simply say, this is what I've learned. I'm sorry if somebody felt something bad about that, or it affected you. But for her, it was like, mind opener, that it might be something small, something obvious, but those small acts, how leader reacts when she or he is making mistake, is really, really huge and important, tremendous when it comes to psychological safety. If we imagine the opposite situation, so the leader is pretending that they are always shiny, no errors, always perfect, how on earth we are supposed to admit that we made a mistake? No, it's impossible. We should be always perfect. And another two aspects, choose what behaviors get attention and regulate peace and pressure. So if the leader is pointing out to certain things and showing this is what I liked, this is what I loved, then this is a really, really strong signal. So if the leader says, yes, I want to see experiments, I want to hear what you have learned, I want to know what are the things that do not work for you, it's a clear invitation for learning and facing the consequences of experiments. If the leader is telling, don't bring problems, bring me solutions, there will be no problems, officially. But we know what is the reality, right? And when it comes to peace and pressure, if you ever had a boss, and I believe majority of us did, what happens when the boss is asking a lot, what's the progress? What's the progress? How are things going? Do we all have great metrics? Sometimes we say this is so-called watermelon effect, right? If there is a huge pressure put on the teams, then the team will start showing watermelon, which means everything is green, everything is beautiful on our dashboards, in our data. But what is the reality? It might not be visible, right? Because boss demands good news. And another point, I tend to say that this is one of the most important jobs for the leaders: defined boundaries and expectations. So self-management does not happen in vacuum. Self-management needs right boundaries. And here, how boundaries, for instance, for learning, for making mistakes, another great boundary, it's not so common in my experience, a boss expecting people to challenge her or him, even in front of others. That's something that I've seen in one of the companies. They were very, very inspired by the book about Netflix culture of innovation, No Rules Rules. And it was a huge learning for the whole company. And as you can imagine, because I remember that very well, I was asked to, challenge leaders in front of others. And it was really interesting because when I did it, after this meeting, of course, because the leaders asked about that, they were absolutely sure that they wanted, they were happy, something happened. But one of engineers who were always thinking very well about our leaders, he came to me and he said, listen, Joanna, I don't think it's okay to say such things in front of others, right? So that was a really interesting lesson. And I showed him, like, look how they reacted. They actually appreciated that. And I think that that's a signal for us that they want to be challenged by us. Not because we should act, in a harsh way. If we are still kind but challenging, we are actually bringing important insights for them. So it helped. It helped in that company. It improved their culture. Last but not least, intervene in harmful dynamics. So psychological safety is about feeling safe to speak up, to show different things, and imagine that we might have some aggression. And I'm not speaking about, physical aggression, but maybe like microaggression, using words, some kind of mean questions like, Joanna, do you even know how to code, that you are involved in that conversation? How the leader reacts now can play a very, very important role. So whether there is a reaction this is not how I want us to communicate, or that's fine, cool. Yeah, no, don't challenge developers. They know what they are saying. So this reaction will affect my behaviors and my colleagues too, because others see, right? So I think what is really important is that it does not matter so much what is your level of leadership. There will be always most likely somebody in this room. Maybe it's like in the corridor, maybe it's a virtual meeting or like a physical meeting in the office. And if somebody sees you, listens to you, he or she is now modeling what is fine, what is not. And it works for all the leaders.
Talking about, so we're a little past halfway, but I wanted to, there's a bit to unpack. So this is really up to you how you want to unpack this. There's a question that came through. So the question is, how can you balance vulnerability while or with making sure that the company is not going under? So there's a lot of different ways that I see to impact that, but I would love just for you to comment about that, or maybe you're gonna talk about it because it's very interesting, the notion of vulnerability, psychological safety, how that might be perceived versus going under, which is progress, maybe something about strength in there.
Oh my God, I think that's a lovely question, and it might unpack another deep discussion. So I think that actually there's no how to say that being vulnerable. It's not something that is against progress and focusing on what we can do as team and as company to be successful. It's actually supporting each other, right? Because what do I mean when I say role model vulnerability? I mean that it's fine to say, I don't know. And instead of sitting with this, I don't know, I ask somebody for advice, or maybe they know somebody that should be involved. So here is, so to make it clear, we are not saying that we should speak a lot about of our personal things, because there are always boundaries. Here we say that if we don't know, let's talk about it. If we made a mistake, even terrible one, it's better to report it quickly and create a group that will help us solve that instead of finger pointing, right, and judging. So I actually believe that for me, the quickest answer to this question is vulnerability. Right vulnerability should actually help you prevent from many problems, because you will be acting quicker, you will be collaborating, co-creating, and you will be focused on solving that,
Yeah, it's
whatever
not
it
two
is.
different things, right? It's not by saying, hey, I'm worried or I want to invest in us, having a safer space doesn't mean that you're not focused on the value. In fact,
Exactly.
you're ultra focusing on the value that teams deliver. But it is not, I don't think it should be mistaken for like, oh, we're gonna have fun team icebreakers and talk about our favorite flavor of ice cream. It's not it. That's not useful.
That's not.
Yeah.
That's not. Maybe I can also comment if this topic is interesting to any of you. So when I work on psychological safety, it is always connected to something related to business value, some kind of metrics that a team can influence. And we never say that, okay, we measure psychological safety today, we will have some kind of learning program, and after 3 months, we will see now we are great in psychological safety. Congratulations, everyone. It's never like that. So psychological safety should be treated as an opportunity to help the team solve certain problem, improve value delivery. So it's like maybe this is why for me now it's so obvious it will work together, right? How cool is that? Okay, I spoke about formal leaders. Let me tell just a few words about informal leaders. So if you do not perceive yourself as a leader, I think you should, because you can be a leader of problem, a leader that is helping shape this psychological safety, right? So why informal leaders are also very important and they influence psychological safety? Because you shape this peer culture. And each of us, if we, again, think about ourselves as leaders, we can do something about that. What we can do, we can demonstrate what's really safe. I've seen fantastic, absolutely fantastic conflict handling by team members without me even starting to talk as a Scrum Master, when they felt safe to say, you know what, I think we are talking now too much about emotions, and I want all of us to remind ourselves, we are the team right now, we have a common problem, and we are either willing to be still in this together, or maybe, and no hard feelings, maybe we need changes, maybe our leaders can help us regroup, right? For me, it's like, wow, that was the leader for that problem. This person actually proposed something that was later implemented. It takes a lot of courage, and this courage was guaranteed by high psychological safety, and the leaders who acted wisely later, they were only upholding the formal leaders, upholding that environment. And when you are a leader, again, you can amplify or undermine psychological safety. How you behave, how you comment, how do you react to people's mistake. I've seen fantastic acts of leadership when people were saying, okay, there is a mistake, let me help you, right? Or I'm curious to hear your perspective. What a wonderful gift that we can give to somebody, our curiosity and openness. Oh, and again, we have Scrum values. I see Scrum everywhere. Informal leaders can also act as bridges. They build high social capital. People may trust them, so they can help us in building high level of psychological safety. They can collaborate with others and help solve impediments on that path. So speaking about Scrum, yes, we have Scrum Masters in the Scrum team, but it takes a lot of acts of leadership so that we all contribute to this air that we can effectively breathe. So,
can I stop you before you move on, because there's something that you were talking about on the previous slide. We have about 15 minutes, but and I loved how you subtly were just throwing out some Scrum values, but what do you do in a situation? So you were talking about teams and informal leadership, your experience as a Scrum Master working on a team where they kind of, worked it out themselves, right? So this question here is, how do you handle a situation where someone's continuously underperforming, but while still maintaining a workspace that's psychologically safe? And I'll probably break that down for you to kind of take that into two different situations. So something like that, yes, your psychological safety, the situation is going to change, right? This is complex environments to deal with. So I think if you could talk about this in two areas, I would love to know. So I have a conflict with you. You're underperforming. We're peers, right? So now maybe something feels like it's a little bit broken, versus I'm a manager and there's a person who underperforms and this has been escalated to me and I need to take care of it. How do I take care of that so that my team also feels like I'm supporting that?
Okay, so I think Scrum everywhere. Transparency and right boundaries is the answer for me. Because I think that what worked for me in the past a lot, even before I knew about psychological safety as a concept, is that if we are transparent in the sense that we made it clear what is happening, what are the facts, what are the potential consequences, what are the expectations, what is okay, what is not okay, we do it in a kind way, but in a very open, right, way and easy to understand. It becomes clear for everyone what is happening. So we can definitely set the right stage. And I think that if somebody underperforms and it's affecting others, right, it's causing conflict, people see that. So I think what the leader can do is, again, set expectations and show what are the potential consequences. And it will not affect psychological safety in a negative way if we do it in a transparent and fair way, because it's not fair if we are not supporting our colleagues, right? It's not fair if we do not collaborate effectively.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And then there's actually, of course, that's led to some more questions, but I'd love for you to keep on going and we'll see what we can get through.
Yeah, let's go. So what are the risks of ignoring psychological safety? I will unpack a few things for you. And here I wanted to show you what can happen in someone's head. Like, imagine it's a team member, and let's give the names to those risks. So the first is silence, lack of knowledge about crucial things. Another, pretending there are no mistakes, hiding mistakes. So we are not able to solve them effectively. We are unable to prevent a big damage from happening. It's like sabotaging, let's put it like that. Officially, yes, we are aligned, but unofficially, we will do our thing. So terrible from the leader's perspective, right? I thought we agreed on something that it turns out that something totally different is happening. Another risk, losing talents, because it was proven that low psychological safety may affect motivation. It may also affect us, that can cause a burnout. So people will put a lot of effort into protecting themselves instead of focusing on work, on delivering valuable solutions, to the customers. It's avoiding conflict at all costs. We know from Patrick Lencioni's model, this is one of the dysfunctions. We need some disagreements to be creative and innovative team. And it's simply not caring too much, just doing like from this to this. Some people call it quiet quitting. I think it might be also affected to psychological safety. So as you can see, there are a lot of risks, and it is related, if we take a look at those risks, to the problems, that many leaders mention when we read on social media, when we talk to the leaders. So from that part, I want you to remember, every leader influences psychological safety. It might be conscious, it might be unconscious, but it is. This impact is there. And I believe the sooner we realize the impact, we are impacting it, the better, because we can do something about that. So, as I already told you, it takes leadership. And I strongly believe it takes leadership on different levels to build this space. So, how to do it? Intentionally. I think that some of the people assume it will happen, And indeed, I've met wonderful people, wonderful leaders in particular, that they understood on this, let's say, intuition level, how to build safe space. However, as we have a lot of knowledge already, tools and ideas, excuse me, I would encourage you, do it with full awareness. Introduce deliberate efforts. So, wonderful leaders, 4 key principles for you, as mentioned by Professor Amy Edmondson. Honesty, and here again, connection to transparency, I believe. It's not like you have to say everything, right? But don't lie. Tell what you can say. Vulnerability, we already tackled that a little bit, showing that imperfection exists and things happen. Communication, so how you communicate, what kind of words do you use, how often you communicate. This will affect psychological safety. And information sharing, what kind of information? Information that is needed, that people should know to do their work best. If there are gossips, that's one of my favorite examples, be very careful with gossips. So I think it's good to make some of the things clear and avoid people talking behind the walls, because they may create stories that are not true, and it will affect their work. Okay, so how to model those 4 things? First one, be a don't knower. So don't know, embrace not knowing. Don't believe that you always have to have all the answers, and appreciate that people are open when saying, I don't know. Great, you don't know. What we can do to learn? What you can do to learn? How can I help you to learn? So this way of thinking that not knowing is okay, and what we will do with that, this is a huge change for the leader. And remember, you also make mistakes. Change the rules of the game. So low psychological safety may create a game where we try not to lose our identity of a perfect person, not to lose our identity of somebody who is liked by everyone. Maybe this is something that we will create. What we want to change, dear leaders, we want to win. So it's really important to emphasize that we as a team, we want to be a learning team, thinking broadly, learning organization. We have a lot to win, but we need to play this game differently. Another that we already tackled when we were explaining this concept of making errors. Intelligent failure, and when I say intelligent failure, it's a failure coming from an experiment. We hoped it will be a positive outcome. Yes, this is how we should build this product. Oh, yes, this is what our users truly want. But the result is nope. Okay, what have we learned? If this is complex environment, Scrum world again, we will not have answers to many questions. That's why we need to focus on so-called intelligent failures, asking the teams, what have you learned from that? How did it affect your work? This is what some people say, fail fast. I believe it's better to tell our teams, please learn fast. In particular, learn about those directions that are not valuable for our users, customers.
I think with so we have about 5 minutes left, and there's some really great questions that we can get into, but just on your last line, So there's a question here from another Joanna, or Joanna, I don't know, depending where you are. So this one's very interesting, and I think it ties into what you were talking about. So this one was, how do you build psychological safety in team members who are anxious or negative? So we've seen those, right? I can't do that. I don't think we can do that. How can we do that? Oh, especially those in this situation who are neurodiverse or have trauma and struggle with trust. I find it challenging to challenge a negative mindset without overstepping in a work environment. So I'm curious just very quickly what you think about that.
That's a really powerful question. And I was privileged to work with neurodivergent people. And I think that showing this, our openness to build this psychological safety conversation is the biggest first step that we can make. Why? Because neurodivergent people, on one hand, some people say, oh, they have special needs. But if we think deeper about that, there's a lot of sense and a lot of inspirations in what they say. So when they are anxious, they have negative, let's say, approach, I would ask myself, okay, why? What is that? What is happening in that team? Because maybe actually those people, maybe asking question is a good actually slide for that. Maybe having a good conversations with them and understanding what is the source of that, inviting them to do something together about that may lead to fantastic results, because they are by default, they can bring quite interesting perspective into the game. So it was, I think, also proven by Professor Amy Edmondson that high psychological safety can actually embrace diversity, in particular neurodiversity.
Yeah, and I think what I'll add to that, just in terms of what I know about kind of the basis of Scrum and some of that history, the neurodivergence is so broad, but in general, these types of experiences, I would really look at the Scrum framework, right? So it's really like there are things that exist there for a reason. There are boundaries that are there for a reason. So it's really helpful in that terms of saying, here are the accountabilities, and here is what we're going to try to learn in this iteration, right? So we can't know everything and all that stuff, but we're trying to bound that risk and to make people feel a little bit more supportive and comfortable. And that's actually one of the reasons why I've seen this actually in some areas where it's like, okay, we're going to try this and then we're going to add. So that's a really nice question. And it is difficult. So there's of course now too many questions that we can't answer them all, but I think a nice one would be to, how do you rebuild trust in psychological safety when that's been broken as a leader? If you can give 30 seconds, and then we'll have to look at these questions differently, answer these questions differently.
Step by step, conversation by conversation. This is my shortest possible answer. So every conversation might be actually an opportunity to present invitation for rebuilding psychological safety.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for everyone. You seem to all get your questions in the last 7 minutes, so I apologize for not getting through them with you, but thank you so much, Joanna. And there's some great questions here. We'll take a look at them and make sure that we get them so that Joanna can address them. Feel free to face with her on LinkedIn. I'm also available if you'd like to contact me on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure that everybody gets connected. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joanna, and have
Thank you.
a